brisk, at times combative exchange with the president today covered a sweeping list of issues from the fate of a struggling airline to looming decisions over military force, from arms inventories to the geopolitics of Iran, China and Europe. In a roughly 20-minute back and forth with reporters, the president returned again and again to two themes: negotiating or using force, and putting America first. He painted a picture of a fractured adversary, argued that the United States is well stocked for sustained operations, and signaled possible interventions in high-stakes commercial and technological disputes at home. A reporter opens with a blunt framing of options in a conflict zone. What kind of options? How would it look different? The president's answer was stark and at times almost conversational in its violence. Do we want to go and just blast the hell out of them and finish him forever, or do we want to try and make a deal? I mean, those are the options. When pressed H, he acknowledged a personal reluctance. I prefer not, he said. On a human basis, I prefer not, he said. On a human basis, I prefer not. But that's the option. That tension between the appetite for overwhelming force and the desire to avoid the impost threaded through the entire briefing. The president repeatedly described the opposing leadership as very disjointed, very argumentative with each other, and very confused, arguing the discord is a consequence of recent battlefield setbacks. Their military has been defeated, he said, claiming their Navy and Air Force are gone and many soldiers are gone as well. They essentially have no military, he added, suggesting that rebuilding would take decades. If we left right now, it would take them 20 years to build back that country. Against that backdrop, the president said negotiations remain on the table. We just had a conversation with Iran. Let's see what happens, he told reporters. But he also made plain he was not satisfied with its current position. When asked whether the United States would consider further strikes, he rebuffed the question with a characteristic pivot. Why would I tell you that on the diplomatic front? The president repeatedly invoked the possibility of a deal while warning that adversaries were internally fractured. One group wants to make a certain deal, the other group wants to make a certain deal, including the hardliners, he said. The hardliners want to make a deal too. Why wouldn't they? Still, he said, they're not there in my opinion, and we are negotiating. Their teams are unbelievably disjointed. On the question of legal constraints on the president's conduct of war, he spoke dismissively of limits some have tried to impose. So many presidents, as you know, have gone and exceeded it. It's never been used. It's never been adhered to, and every other president considered it totally unconstitutional, and we agree with that, he said, rejecting the idea that a particular statutory restriction should bind his choices. The president returned to a familiar refrain about the United States firepower and readiness. Asked about reporting that White House staff were worried about inventories of bombs and missiles given the scale of operations, he offered a confident denial. No.
We have more than we've ever had, actually, because all over the world we have inventory, he said.
We're stocked and locked and loaded. He insisted that global American stocks more than compensate for any perceived shortfalls and contrasted his approach with that of a predecessor. Biden came in like a stupid fool, and he gave a lot of what we had to Ukraine, he said. He gave a lot of the inventory away. Now, relatively speaking, it's not that. But it was a lot of inventory he gave it to Ukraine. That was one of the sharpest personal attacks in the exchange. Economic claims and domestic politics were woven into questions about the international crisis. The president touted record high GAS on Wall Street and said employment numbers were at an all-time high, arguing that a military resolution would push down oil and gasoline prices and further improve consumer conditions. The stock market is hitting record numbers, he said. We have more people working in the USA today than we've ever had working. He added that when the war ends, gasoline prices are going to tumble because tankers are already loaded but unable to escape the strait. Turning from geopolitics to a high-profile corporate drama, reporters asked about Spirit Airlines. Did you decide against bailing out Spirit Airlines? Came a direct question. The president said the administration was looking at it, but only on strict terms. If we could do it, we'll do it. But only if it's a good deal, he said. They're claiming that they're preparing to shut down this weekend because they haven't gotten the deal. He framed any intervention in national interest terms. We gave them a final proposal. He said, I haven't gotten the deal. He said, I'd like to save the jobs, but we'll have an announcement sometime today. Later, he reiterated a preference for deal makers to come first, saying bluntly, hey, you know what it is. USA first, America first. He tied the airline discussion to earlier industrial interventions, bringing up a high-profile semiconductor incentive that he said returned value. We made an Intel deal. You know that, right? We made about $40 billion on that, he said. Technology and domestic politics collided when a reporter asked about Anthropic, the artificial intelligence company. The CEO of Anthropic came to meet Susie Wilds a week or two ago. What is the latest on your position on that company? The reporter asked. The president offered only that the meeting had been very good and then shifted into the larger inventory and strategic posture. He later referred to a recent visitor from the military, the SECOM commander, who had briefed him on a different approach and options. That line of discussion folded the AI topic into a broader set of concerns about technology, security and influence. The president also suggested international travel and summit plans were on the calendar. Asked whether he would attend the G7 in France, he said probably, and on China, spoke enthusiastically about an upcoming visit with Chairman Xi. It's going to be amazing. The visit with China and Chairman Xi, that's going to be great, he said, using a phonetic rendering of the Chinese leader's name. He further suggested high-level diplomacy might include meetings on regional tensions. Will the Lebanese and Israeli leaders be meeting here soon at the White House? A reporter asked. Yeah, they're going to be covered, he replied. The conversation wandered from foreign affairs to ceremonial moments. A reporter pressed the president on whether he felt safe attending a public event after somebody tried to kill you on Saturday. The president answered with characteristic stossy. Sma, I don't even think about it. Peter, he said, brushing aside the question and signaling his intention to continue with public appearances. Sports and cultural matters even found their way into the briefing. When asked about a pardon for Pete Rose, the president said, "Oh, I think Pete Rose was great. I think Pete Rose should have been in the Baseball Hall of Fame a long time ago before his death. I think baseball did a great disservice by not respecting his achievements on the field." That line mixes praise of the former player with a confusing reference to mortality that reporters did not pass further in the room. He also teased an unconventional White House event. You're going to be hosting the first ever UFC fight at the White House in 45 days, sir. Can you preview the event? A reporter asked. The president described an arena being built and a free spectacle he promised would draw crowds. Some of the greatest champions in the world, he said. The arena, they're going to start building it over the next week. It's right here. It'll be about 5,000 seats. They'll have a 100,000 people down by the lips. We have Squeeze, and it's all free. It's going to be great. Throughout, the president returned to themes of national pride and achievement, tax cuts, deregulation, and economic growth. We have the largest tax cuts in the history of our country, he asserted. We have no tax on Social Security for our seniors. We have no tax on overtime. He praised domestic manufacturing incentives and framed them as part of a larger America First economic strategy. But the most consequential exchanges returned to the conduct of the war and the calculus of force. When a reporter asked, "Mr. President, if you can't get a deal on Iran, what next? What will you do?" The president repeated his posture. Negotiations are ongoing, but he is prepared to act. Right now, we have negotiations going on. They're not getting there. They are very disjointed, he said. We're not satisfied at this point. He added that the adversary has no idea who their leaders are, a point he attributed to the confusion sown by American operations. Crucially, the president insisted that his administration has been in close contact with Iran and that talks have been attempted. We just had a conversation with Iran. Let's see what happens, he said. But he was also clear that military pressure and the blockade he described as unbelievable. Powerful 100% would remain an instrument of leverage. It's been actually unbelievable. Powerful 100% would remain an instrument of leverage. It's been actually unbelievable. If we left right now, we had a great victory, but we're not doing that, he said, emphasizing that negotiations continued in the shadow of military success. On the matter of arms and assistance beyond direct operations, the president touched on an episode that he described as a concern, the delivery of weapons to proxies in the region. You said you send weapons to help Iranian demonstrators, the reporter noted, referencing reports of SAM, all arms deliveries. The president replied that he was not happy with the delivery of the weapons. I'm not thrilled with it, but a small amount of weapons were sent, and we'll see who has them. I'm not happy with what happened with the Kurds. He added, the Kurds did not deliver the weapons, whatever. The remark, blunt and non-committal, underlined the murky and often deniable logistics that surround proxy support in the region. A reporter pressed on whether the president would seek congressional authorization for continued action. It's day 60. Are you going to seek congressional authorization for? The president's response again framed the legal question as largely a matter of precedent and executive practice. No other country has ever done it. It's never been in, as you know, most people consider it totally unconstitutional. Also, we had a ceasefire, so that gives you additional time, he said, dismissing the idea that he would seek new congressional permission. There were moments of levity and idiosyncrasy tapped into the remarks. He praised a recent meeting with Queen and King, saying of King Charles, "The King and I had a great he's just a great person. He's a high-quality person." He lauded the construction of a new ballroom. "You're going to have the greatest ballroom ever built. It's on time, on budget, and it's doing great." And he closed at one point with a shorthand of personal affection. "I love you, Mr. President." A line whose context was left unresolved in the room. Taken together, the briefing was a portrait of a presidency comfortable mixing blunt threats with diplomacy, domestic policy with battlefield commentary, and personal barbs with official assurances. The president repeatedly presented a binary: negotiate a deal or use overwhelming force. Those are the options, he told reporters. Do we want to go in there heavy and just blast them away, or do we want to do something? He also repeatedly invited a conservative calculator. Sen, hold hard where leverage exists, but use that leverage to bring rivals to the table. They want to make a deal so badly, but they're not there yet, he said. We are negotiating. Their teams are unbelievably disjointed, but we are negotiating. Reporters in the room pushed on the practicalities, munitions inventories, multinational consultations, the status of deals with private companies, and the human costs of conflict. The answers offered were a mix of policy positions, pointed political attacks, and on-the-record claims about battlefield results and national readiness. As the administration seeks to balance continued pressure with diplomatic openings, the public conversation is likely to track three questions. Can negotiations produce a verifiable settlement? Will military pressure be calibrated to avoid escalation? And how will domestic politics shape decisions about bailouts, technology policy, and the use of force? For now, the president left the door open for both paths. A deal and the option of decisive military action. We have more than double what we had when this started, he said of munitions and inventory. But, we're all over the world. We're in many, many different countries, many different places, all packed up. Whether that posture will be matched by partners abroad or constrained by lawmakers at home remains an unfolding question, one that the administration will answer, he said, today or tomorrow as negotiations and decisions continue to move at a relentless pace.